Hello, hi friends, this is Anand and in this short video we'll be talking about bootstrapping. Bootstrapping क्या है? We'll understand not only about bootstrapping, we'll also understand what strategies as a founder you should use, right? Like in bootstrapping, why bootstrapping is important, especially in very early stage. We'll also understand, what are the inherent risks that are associated with bootstrapping. We'll also talk about my thoughts on how as a company you should take bootstrapping and ensure that, you are using the optimum structure for the long term growth of the company. Now वो सारी चीजें हम जानेंगे. I want to keep this right like as a very open conversation, but if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions, please feel free to put them in comment. So what is bootstrapping? Bootstrapping in funding refers to a method of starting and growing a business without relying on external funding or investments. Okay, it's very simple, right? Like उसमें the founder, right, puts all his personal savings, उसके खुद के जो पैसे हैं वो सब दांव पे लगाता है. He also takes right like some help from family and very close relatives and very close friends, but he takes right like that plunge and decides to get into the business. So hats off to all founders who decided to go right like with bootstrapping way, because it's not very easy. ये दो चीजें होती है राइट. एक तो ऐसे होता है कि basically he's not getting fixed salary right like during the bootstrapping stage, and second is he's using all his savings right like he's burning all his savings in. तो उसको बहुत conviction होती है उस idea पे, and he just decides to go against the tide and try to create something meaningfully valuable for the company, to the society and to everyone. And there are many great examples right like of bootstrapped companies. So basically what is the benefit to the founder when he's going with the bootstrap way? तो पहली चीज तो ऐसे होती है कि उसे फ्रीडम मिलता है. मैंने देखा है कि बहुत बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियों में से एम्प्लॉइज डिसाइड टू स्टार्ट देयर ओन कंपनी. तो एक तो चीज ऐसे होती है कि दे नीड राइट लाइक फ्रीडम, दे नीड राइट लाइक कंट्रोल. ये दो चीजें राइट लाइक इफ यू आर स्टार्टिंग समथिंग बाय योर ओन यू गेट. एंड मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स आई हैव सीन दैट लाइक इफ यू आर टेकिंग डिसीजंस देन मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स राइट लाइक इट वर्क्स. बट जब बड़ी कंपनी होती है तब हायरार्की होती है, चैलेंजेस भी आते हैं, यू डोंट हैव राइट लाइक इनफ कंट्रोल, सब प्रोसेसेस ड्रिवन रहता है. तो देयर आर लॉट ऑफ challenges also, and you cannot use your creativity as well. So many times right like when founders takes this decision, they do it for getting more freedom and more control right like with the organization. Of course if it works out and if they are going with a bootstrapped way, and if that startup right like becomes successful, they get more rewards as well right like in terms of the returns. तो ये चीजें रहती है. So let's basically now look into what strategies companies should use when going in a bootstrapped way. तो पहली तो ये चीज है कि start with very small team, small POC start करो, छोटी सी चीजों से start करो, and then start right like growing right like you cannot put all eggs in one basket. You cannot actually put heavy investments on what you are doing, because मुझे याद है जब हम start कर रहे थे कुछ product बनाते वक्त, initially I put lot of investments in that, and especially when things are working out well, it's fine, but if they are not working out well, then it puts you under a lot of stress. You are not able to take creative decisions at a time. So it's very important that like you take enough care when you are investing, specifically during the initial stages. Now second part that you should do is leverage your personal connections. And I'll tell you right like with my experience, LinkedIn, Facebook, तुम्हारे जो दोस्त है like people with whom you have created really good relations, they are the greatest assets. So ensure that you're leveraging that right like in a proper way as well. तो पहली तो चीज ऐसे है कि like तुम्हारे अर्ली स्टेज करियर में तुम फोकस करो कि कैसे ज्यादा से ज्यादा तुम बेसिकली कनेक्शंस कर सको like and try to give more than what you get, and then you will be able to create really strong and really good relationships. Now third part that I have seen is in startups you inherently right like you have to be very frugal. So in the initial stage you have to use a lot of tweaks, and you will have to find out a lot of softwares that will help you reduce the overall cost of whatever platform or product or system that you're building. So I mean, you are generally right, like you're very frugal and you try to create situation where you're not spending a lot of money and you're getting maximum ROI through whatever investments that you're doing. Now, fourth point, which is something similar to the second point I discussed, right, like where you're creating personal relationships. In fourth point, I would like to tell that try to create partnerships and collaborations, right, like with big companies. Especially this depends on the type of the product, type of the work that you're doing, but try to bring them on board, like make them advisor, or try to have a formal relationships, and some people call it as a channel partners, but try to create once your product is ready. These strategies, right, like especially when you're like in the bootstrap stage, will help you leverage, right, like your limited funds to create a product and then also grow the company and make it profitable. So ensure that like you're using, right, like these strategies. Now, what are the challenges associated with bootstrapping company? And this is something very important, especially for investors, right? Like, I mean, when you're investing in a company, there is an inherent risk associated with it. And there are so many risks, but especially with the bootstrap companies, there are a couple of risks that you really need to focus on. The first is when you are looking at startups or when you're investing, you won't see the type of growth that you would see, right? Like with the funded startups as well. So they are trying, right? Like they're reinventing things. So they will organically grow. Now, the second is there are very few finance options, right? Like available with them. So for example, for IT company, it's straightforward, right? Like, I mean, things are very straightforward where you could easily see if you have built the product, you can easily predict, right? Like what you could get based on the demand and supply and based on the historical trend. But especially when you are actually creating something in non-IT domain, getting financing, getting debt especially, right, like is going to be very crucial. And for that you will have to talk to your bank, you will have to find out ways how you could predict, right, like future cash flow and get the debt. And right, like debt, it doesn't come, right, like as it is, it comes with its cost as well. So you have to look into that part. But there is a limited debt because like with bootstrap company, it is very difficult to raise the finance. So it's very important that you look into the debt part, especially when you want to get the debt. You focus on getting additional financing from external investors as well. Now, the fourth point is what happens when you have really good investors on board. You always think of, right, like how you would give good returns to them, and many times you start thinking on the exit opportunities as well. And as you would know, not always getting exit by M&A or IPO is a great thing because it has like its own challenges. But if there are investors on board, you will be able to realize, right, like the true potential by either having exit or either having exit through M&A or IPO. So having investors on board, right, like also is important in that sense. Now, last point is which approach we should use. Again, this is something that I have also studied and I have seen, right, like a lot of successful companies are using. So maybe like my always thoughts are, especially when you are building the POC, you should use your own funds. And again, now investors are also smart. They will not give you funds just with your idea. You'll have to build something, you'll have to create something which is sellable, and you have to start selling as well to get the funds. Now, the serious investors, they look at the profits as well. So especially in the initial stage, when you're creating POC, when you're creating MVP, you're using your own funds to build that MVP. First of all, you should find out like what is the product market fit for your company. Are you able to get, right, like enough clients on board? I mean, there are a lot of definitions to product market fit, but my definition is, you achieve product market fit when any additional investments in sales is giving you multiple X returns. That's the stage, right, like when you get the product market fit. So ensure that, right, like you get that product market fit as soon as possible. So in my opinion, what you should do is you should go for the hybrid approach. So hybrid approach में क्या होता है कि starting में ensure करो कि तुम bootstrap ही हो, you're creating product or platform to a level where you are able to sell it, get like some paying customers, and then go for the investments, and especially when you see that there is a product market fit. So product market fit, what is it in my opinion? Product market fit is a situation or a time, right, like when you see that any incremental investments in sales are giving you multiple X sales or returns, then that stage is called a product market fit. तो अगर मैं basically मेरे company में 10 लाख रुपए sales पे invest करूंगा, and if I'm able to get like for example 50 lakh revenue out of it, that's the product market fit stage. तो वो वहाँ पे आने के बाद, like if you raise the fund, then you will be able to effectively utilize that funding for your sales related activities, and of course, right, like keep some part of it for your development work as well. So these are my thoughts about bootstrapping. I hope you like this video. If you have any comments, if you have any suggestions, please feel free to put them in comments below, and looking forward to engaging with you more through this YouTube initiative. Thank you so much.